Roots 101 Deeply Rooted. From the vibrant and storied heart of America, brought to you by the Roots 101 African American Museum. This is the Deeply Rooted Podcast, where we pay homage to the unsung heroes, the pillars of our community, the inventors, the artists, the activists, and our ancestors by highlighting Black excellence of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Your guide on this journey, none other than the passionate and insightful Lamont Collins, a visionary, a mentor, a scholar, and most importantly, a griot of African American history and culture. So sit back, tune in, and let's dive deep into the rich soil as we get deeply rooted.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Deeply Rooted podcast episode with one of Louisville's legends, Kentucky's legend. Matter of fact, football legend right here in Louisville, Kentucky. He broke the color barrier at University of Kentucky. We have an exhibit here called The Four of Us with him and his teammates. I'll let him explain who he is, and he can also talk about the teammates that broke the color barrier of the SEC. Welcome, Wilbur. How you doing, my man?
Fine, Lamont. Thank you so much for having me. And first thing I want to correct is I did not break the color barrier at University of Kentucky. It was Nate Northern who played at Thomas Jefferson High School and Greg Page, who's from, not the Greg Page, the boxer, but this is Greg Page from Middlesboro, Kentucky.
Okay.
They were the first two African Americans to play football in the Southeastern Conference in 1966. Both of them signed a scholarship that same year. So they broke the color barrier. Albert Johnson, who was from Thomas Jefferson High School, Houston Hall, who was from Owensboro High School, originally from Hazard, and myself came in 1967. So we were the second wave of African Americans in there.
The wave of two.
The wave,
The wave
well,
of two.
three. Well, Albert Johnson was another, but Albert got hurt and he quit, and then he left the team. But yeah, it was Houston, Albert, and myself in year two.
Well, I even had James Green, who broke the color barrier for track and field, correct?
Yeah, Jim Green.
I think Jim said that he was the first black athlete to graduate.
Yes, he was. Yes, Jim ran track. It took me a long time. I thought Jim came the same year we did in '67, but Jim came a year later in 1968.
From Eminence, Kentucky.
From Eminence,
called the fastest man in the world.
Yeah, but he was at one time.
Yeah,
He could run. We tried like everything to get Jim to come out and
play football?
But I don't think Jim was ready for that.
Well, you know, football's football. You know that, and I know that.
It was tough back then too. It was almost like we felt like we were playing without helmets.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just.
Well, how did you get to University of Kentucky? What's the story from Manual High School, a local school here, to Lexington at a SEC school that not many black athletes were going to?
Right. So it dates back, and it goes back to my days and my time in Winchester, Kentucky. Winchester is where I was born. Winchester, Kentucky is where I was born in 1955. 1949. We moved in 55 to Louisville. But in Winchester, 12 miles east of Lexington, right down 64. Well, back then it wasn't in 64, it was US 60.
Right.
But my parents were big UK fans. And so in Winchester, we didn't know anything about Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, it's just non-existent. I mean, we were country people from Winchester, Kentucky. And back then, UK athletics was really big. I mean, they had Adolph Rupp, who I don't want to say much about, the basketball team winning, and then, but the real strong point about UK athletics was a lot of people don't know that Barry Bryant was the football coach from 1949 to 1956, and in 1950, they actually shared the title, the national title, winning the national title, But my parents were very athletic. My mother was just as athletic and interested in sports as my dad. My dad, who was from, Richmond, Kentucky, Waco, and my mother was from Shelbyville, Kentucky, and they met at Lincoln Institute, but they were both very avid sports fans.
Well, let's talk about Lincoln, because people don't know Lincoln. I know Lincoln. Tell me about Lincoln
Okay,
Institute.
well, Lincoln Institute was the high school that many African Americans went to. It was like a college campus.
Yeah, like a prep school.
Like a prep school, and it was in a college setting for high school up in Simpsonville, Kentucky. They call it now the Whitney Young Center, right. But it was first started by Whitney Young, and many blacks who couldn't go to schools, or if they didn't have high schools in their small towns, then they went to Lincoln Institute. So they came from all over the state of Kentucky to attend Lincoln Institute. It was a college. It was a high school with a college setting.
Yeah, they had basketball, football, dormitories, and all that.
They had it all.
Yeah.
And of course, they didn't have scholarships, but they still, it was where many African Americans that again, like even some people from Louisville went. People out in Berrytown and Griffithtown, because they couldn't go to Central, they couldn't go to Eastern High School back then. So they went to Lincoln Institute. It was a black school, high school institution for many blacks around the state of Kentucky.
The leader of the elite went there. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, they did.
Had a good football team, basketball team. And they traveled back then.
They had to travel to other black schools around the state. I mean, you look at Lexington Dunbar, Louisville Central. I think down in Glasgow they had all black school. In Cynthiana they had all these black schools, because of segregation, Jim Crow. I mean, they couldn't go to the white school, so they had a Booker T. Washington in some schools, and like say in Lexington they had Dunbar, but they couldn't go to the white school. So if they didn't have a high school, all black high school in their town, then they would have to go, many of them went to Lincoln Institute. Now in Winchester, even though my dad, we had Oliver Street High School, which is where I started. I went to kindergarten and the first grade at Oliver Street High School in Winchester, Kentucky. Then we moved to Louisville.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Your family, what got you to University of Kentucky? I know about the Hackett family.
Right.
Now, the one that referee when I was playing ball was your what?
Was my dad.
Your dad.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hackett, you always spoke. When you was out there on the field, they'd pull you to the side, say, brother, you can run that ball or keep it up. Always a gentleman on and off the field.
Exactly.
Am I right or wrong?
You're definitely
always.
right.
And he was always encouraging, especially if he knew your name. You know, he'll say 40 or he'll say Collins, especially he knew my dad. So I would see him, hey, Collins, you keep it up. You know, I know, always encouraging. So in your household, when you were coming up, what was he giving you? Your mother and father, you said both were athletes. What were they giving you to let you know you could walk in the SEC and all those things that were going on racially up there?
Well. So let me digress a little bit. Again, from Winchester.
Okay.
And again, UK country. Okay. Didn't know anything about the U of L Cardinals.
No black players at UK.
No black players.
But black people love UK.
And black people love UK because that's what we had. Okay. That's all we had. And plus, we had Bird Bryant, who was winning, and the basketball team was winning. So sports on that level. And then my dad worked for a guy named Taylor Pound, who was a big UK alumni. Taylor Pound had a business in Winchester called Pound Tire Company. It was equivalent to Big O or Firestone, but it's privately owned. Big UK alumni. And my dad, Taylor Pound, on Saturdays during football season, when he would go watch UK play, and Bird Bryant, like, again, was the coach and was very successful, he would leave my dad in charge on Saturdays. And my dad, he played football at Lincoln Institute, basketball and baseball, so he was athletic. And again, my mother, I think she was a tennis player. Both of them very athletic, again. And my dad told Taylor Pound one Saturday, he said, one of these days, I'm going to be going to them games. Little did I know, fast forward 17, I'm 17 years old, and I got an opportunity. I turned out to be a pretty good little athlete. Little did I know that Daddy said that back in the 50s, and he meant it. He spoke it to him. He said, one of these days, it's almost like prophetic. I mean, like the prophecy. It's like, I'm going to be going to these games. He didn't know how. Right. He didn't know that I was going to be the athlete that I turned out to be, but he said one of these days. So it's almost like he foresaw it. And I had an opportunity. I was a pretty good athlete. Like I said, I went to DuPont. Give you a little history. I went to Joseph S. Carter, played with Brady Tigers football. Then I went to Manual from there, and turned out to be a pretty good little football player. And I ended up getting an opportunity to go to college and play football. Michigan State was my number one choice, and Indiana University, Notre Dame.
And people don't know Michigan State. That's when we had Sherman Lewis.
Who went to
Manual High School, right. All-American at Michigan State.
Exactly.
Everybody wanted to be Sherman Lewis at the time.
Exactly. And that's who I wanted to follow. So that was my first choice. But again, you asked me how I got to UK. When I told my dad that Daddy, I made up my mind, I'm going to Michigan State, because my good friend Franklin Foreman, who was a teammate, had gone to Michigan State the year before that, and of course Sherman had gone in 1959 or 60. Well, 59 is when he won state, and he graduated in 60. So I wanted to follow them to Michigan State. When I told my dad that, my dad, he got this finger missing, his left forefinger. He said, "You going to UK?"
Put that finger on.
Put that finger on me, Doc. And whenever he pointed that finger, that missing finger, you better listen. And veins popping all out of his neck and out of his head. And Daddy said, "You going to UK?" And I said, "I thought it was my decision." He said it was, but I want you to go UK. And I was okay with it because he's my dad. He's my best friend, and never led me in any wrong direction. I always did what was best for me, and I listened to him. And that went all the way back again to the 50s and the 60s when we lived in Winchester. When they were, I did not realize, see, back then, how strong support that they had for UK. I didn't know they were that fans like that because I wasn't into it. I was, running around there shooting marbles and pitching horseshoes. I didn't care nothing about no UK. And it was all white. And the thing about it, and I asked Mama, I said, I asked my parents, how could you cheer for a team with Adolph? How could you cheer for Adolph Rupp, who was racist? How could you cheer for a team when you can't even buy tickets to go to the game? How could you cheer for them? And my parents said, without hesitation, "Son, we don't care about the color. We don't care about going in. We just love sports." And they had an opportunity to support their university. And
that's how they look at it. Their university.
It was their university.
Even though they couldn't go.
Even though they couldn't go there, it was their university. So the opportunity for them to see me play, opportunity for my family to other family. And
I imagine doors open up for you by going there.
It's unbelievable what the opportunities that I've had and the things, the doors that opened because I was an athlete, and even and some things happen that I'm not very proud of, but it's just like you get privileged. You privileged if you're a UK football player. I mean, back then they didn't have cameras. If they had cameras and recorded some of the things that we did or I did, I'd still be in jail. So I got away with just by being a UK football player. I was allowed to get past a lot of things that a lot of people weren't able to get.
And you know that.
And I know that. And I'm not proud of it, but it is a fact.
Well, so let's talk about, okay, we know about UK. We know about going down color barrier, even though you say you didn't break it, but you was part of that group that broke it. What was times like then? I know when I was in school, in high school, that's when busing started, right? And that was enough drama. I can't imagine the drama that you guys went through on a college campus. Can you talk about some of those things you had to go through?
You know, Lamont, the toughest thing about going to UK was just surviving every day.
Surviving.
It's survival.
The trauma.
The trauma. Every day. Just the everyday life of being a black man or a black student or an African American on a predominantly white campus, that Jim Crow was still very prevalent. The presence of Jim Crow was still there. And even going to UK, I mean, some places in Kentucky surrounding even in Louisville. I remember as a young man, I couldn't drink out of that white water fountain at the bus station. I had to sit when I drove from Winchester to Lexington on the bus. I had to sit on the back of the bus when we rode the train, which was one of the most popular modes of transportation back then. I had to sit. I couldn't sit with the white people. When I went to the movie theater in Winchester in the Chevy, I had to sit upstairs in the crow's nest because we couldn't sit down with the white people. In Louisville, when I moved to Louisville, I couldn't go downtown and sit down at the Woolworth because if you got served, you had to stand up or else you had to take it to go. But we couldn't even sit down. We couldn't go to the movie theaters. We had our own movie theaters, the Lyric and the Grand. And so it was very proud, but that was a way of life. So when I went to UK, I was accustomed to it. I mean, I knew how to survive because all through I went to an all-black elementary school, Joseph S. Colley Elementary School, Duval Junior High School, all black, and then and back then elementary school was 1 to 6, junior high school, or they call it middle school, was 7, 8, 9. So my first experience with integration was at Manual was in the 10th grade, my sophomore year. So, but all proud of that, I marched for open housing. I marched for desegregation. I remember very vividly marching with Martin Luther King from 22nd and Oak Street all the way down 22nd Street and then up Broadway to 3rd Street and then out 3rd Street to Wyandotte Park, and that's where they stopped us. They wouldn't let us go any further. So I had been exposed, and my parents allowed me to experience the right to protest and break those barriers, break those doors down. And so I was very fortunate that I had the experience of dealing with very racist situations and segregation, and we dealt with it non-violently. Right. But I was able to. I was in the movement, and I was proud to be a part of it.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm I think about all, you put on the uniform, you're representing the school, but you still know people looking at you as a darker color blue. Mm-hmm. You still got blue on, but right. You got darker color blue.
Right.
When you're navigating on campus, when you got the school jacket, they know you the one that's on the football team, right? But if you go somewhere without the football jacket on, and we wear a helmet on the football field, did you ever see a difference on how they treated you? They didn't think you was poor, or everybody knew?
No, most definitely there was a difference. Okay. On the football field, it was as a black athlete for UK in a very unique position, of course, because there weren't many. But as a UK athlete, I felt like I was protected from a lot of things, a lot of the racism that went on. But when I wasn't, I mean, it was just very, very evident. I can't tell you how many times we had to deal with the racism just because I was a black man on the campus of UK. Mm-hmm. And those are people that didn't know I was an athlete. But it was an everyday occurrence. And like I said earlier, to me, the toughest thing about UK was just surviving the racism that we had to deal with by being a black student on a university campus every day.
I know.
And the way we did it is we stuck together.
Yeah, I remember you talked about, you said, Lamar, a lot of times I spent my time in the projects.
Oh, yeah.
Correct?
Oh, yeah.
Explain to me how that became the place that was home for you.
It was my getaway. It was my refuge. I was being nurtured by people who I knew loved and cared for me.
Because they wanted you to be successful.
They wanted me to succeed. Because they knew. Because they wanted to be the success that we achieved, I should say, was a part of what they've been trying to achieve for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And for them to see a black athlete on their campus, and it was right there in their face. I mean, Lexington Dunbar, look at all the great athletes at Lexington Dunbar.
Never got to go.
Never got to go. Right. And even in the city of Lexington, even after Dunbar, it was the other schools where when they integrated Lexington, Tate Street, and some of the other schools, Bryan Station, there were athletes that were there who were black, who couldn't go to UK because they weren't ready,
right? And
they weren't accepting. Right. It was almost like we got our number, mm-hmm. and we can't get but too many at the same time.
So did your family background, your dad, your mom, did that help them say, hey, we can take him because we know his parents and keep him straight, or no?
I tell many people and that. I think they handpicked who they wanted. Because, I mean, I know I wasn't the best athlete in the state of Kentucky. They had some guys out like Lawrence Brain, Jelly Green. I mean, these guys right here in Louisville that I know were just as good athletes as I was. I had guys on my team, Jerome Perry, William Schultz, mm-hmm. Mo Furman, Steve Furman. These guys could play with anybody.
Right.
But they handpicked who they wanted.
Family cohesiveness kind of made it happen.
Oh, yeah.
That pedigree.
Well, yeah, and again, I know Nate and Greg.
Yeah.
Now, you look at all the athletes that went to Central, Dunbar, Hopkinsville, all over the state, and you look at all the athletes who were good athletes, and I'm not saying that they didn't deserve it, or we didn't deserve it, mm-hmm. but we weren't necessarily the best. Even right there, Thomas Jefferson, I guarantee you, I can name some guys. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we was talking about that.
And we'll see. I mean, these guys were good athletes too, but why Seneca High School?
Yeah, I think Gathright had to go Morehead somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And they said he could play anywhere.
Man, I'm telling you.
Baseball, football, track and field.
Athlete.
A guy that's, 6'1", 6'2", that could play safety back in the day, play down line, he could play anything, right?
Could play anything.
Yeah.
So there were so many athletes in Louisville and in Lexington and in the western part of the state who could have played at UK just like we did. But again, I'm firmly believing. I don't know, no one ever told me this, but I know for a fact they handpicked who they wanted. And we just happen to be the athletes that they chose.
Well, let's talk about being an athlete, because I was an athlete too. But when you're on that field, that's when you get to prove who you are. And there's politics to that too, who's going to play, who's not going to play.
Exactly.
But at least you have the opportunity, especially on defense, you have an opportunity to hit somebody, to show them you can play.
Right.
I have not, I may not start, but I can play.
Right.
Like, who's going to play? How did that happen at SEC? Here you are, a few black players, all these white kids on the field. When you had the opportunity to hit, what did your mindset change all of a sudden? You're in that atmosphere, or you always was a hitter?
Let me tell you something. On my team, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked me that. I knew there were racist teammates. We had racist teammates. We had teammates who did not want us on the team. And even to this day, Greg's, and I have to almost, again, go back. Greg's death was something that probably was the most traumatic thing I had to happen.
We'll talk about that, because a lot of people don't know about Greg Page dying on the football field at UK.
I can't talk about UK without talking about Greg Page and his death. But probably the most traumatic thing that happened to me in my life was Greg's death. And Greg, I was 17 years old when I went to UK. I turned 18 in October, but in July, I was 17 years old. And probably the thing that was the most traumatic thing, and the thing that I remember most was about my career at UK was Greg Page and his passing. And to this day, a lot, I don't think anybody intentionally meant to kill Greg. I don't think they meant to injure him like he did, but it's still, there are a lot of questions surrounding this death.
Can you talk about it? Because a lot of people don't know he was on the football field.
We were on the football field.
And what year was this?
This is in 1967, my freshman year.
Okay.
And Greg would have been a sophomore, so he went through his Nate and Greg went through.
Because you couldn't play at freshman.
At freshman, you could not
couldn't play.
So they went through their freshman. They had a really good freshman football team. I think they went 4-0 because freshmen only played 4 games. And Greg was slated to be a starter. So that was in 1966, their freshman year. So in 67, Houston, Albert Johnson, and myself came, and it was in this preseason in the fall or the summer when we went in July.
There have been 2-a-day practices?
2-a-day practice, and they don't do that anymore. No, because my grandson said these boys can't take 2-a-day. But anyway. We had 2-a-days, and it was in the morning practice, and it was what we were in shorts and shoulder pads. It was what we call a pursuit drill. So in pursuit drill, the defense, there's no tackling. You get to the ball, whatever end or whatever direction the runner goes, you go to that
and break down.
Okay. No tackling. You just break down. So Greg was the first that went in his to his end. Greg got there, grabbed the runner, and broke down, and then all of a sudden, all these other players came, and Greg, after they all 11 players have to get to the ball,
right.
And once Greg, once all the 11 players were there and breaking down, Greg hit the ground and he didn't get up, and so somebody hit Greg in the spine, and to this day, I don't know. I could not, just like I know your name is Lamont Collins, and we're all on the same, but I don't know who hit Greg in the spine that day. But anyway, it caused enough injury that it paralyzed him from the neck down. So for 38 days, Greg laid in the hospital.
So what happened on the field? I've been on fields when people get hurt, tear up a knee, and tore up my knee.
Right.
So when that happens, you break down, doing the drill, somebody falls, everybody kind of back up, it's hot, and then you feel something's happening that you can't control. What was it for you that day?
Well,
Can you remember?
Yeah, I vividly. I think we were the freshmen because freshmen were like the scout team, and I just kind of remembered after everybody got up, and Greg laid on the ground, and he didn't move, and so immediately they called in the trainers. And
Nobody was saying get up.
No. Well, probably so. Probably so. Come on, Greg. But he didn't move. So I think immediately you knew Greg. He was hurt. Something's happening because I'm talking about he couldn't move.
And he's a big guy for the time, right?
6'2", 6 foot, about 225, 215.
Big for that time.
Big for that time, and built like solid as a rock, just chiseled, just cut. And he didn't move, and that's when they called in the doctors, and because we always have a doctor on the field, and everyone kind of backed off, and he just laid there, and then they carted him up. He's actually stopped breathing on the field, and they resuscitated Greg and got him to breathing and took him to the hospital, and that's probably the last time we saw Greg. We actually, I'm not really sure, but I think Houston and I snuck to, because no, he couldn't have visitors.
That's what I heard.
But I think Houston and I snuck in the hospital, and I think, and I don't think I'm imagining this, Lamont, but I think we looked in that room and saw Greg with all these gadgets, and he couldn't move, and because it was just frightening. But anyway, but the last time we saw him.
Because I heard that, and maybe you can correct it. Over the years, I heard that they told the black players they couldn't go to the hospital, and the white players just didn't go. Or told, is there truth to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No one could see Greg. He couldn't have visitors.
Okay.
But it was only 2 black players at the time. With 3. I think Nate got a chance to go see Greg. Yeah, and I have to check with Nate, but I think they allowed him, and I don't know how many times, but it wasn't on a regular basis.
Okay.
But I think because they were so close that they allowed I think Nate to go see him, and then Houston and I'm pretty, again, you're talking 60 years ago almost, but I think we snuck up in the hospital, and it was so scary to see him laying there, and we walked out. We never went back again. And he died after 30.
So what was it like being an athlete, SEC, the top of the top, even back then? That Bear Bryant's where you are before he went to Alabama.
Right.
Kentucky is known as a good football program. What was it like that Saturday when you got to run onto that field, right? Knowing you were one of 3 or 4 black players on the field, but you wasn't guaranteed to get in the game. How did that work?
Well, Man, see, as a freshman, that was my freshman year.
That's right. So you never had the opportunity.
I never
to come
had
out
the opportunity. No.
Okay.
And when I, as a sophomore, I started every game.
Right.
From my sophomore, junior, senior year.
So what was it like when you got the opportunity to play on the side?
It was
football.
It was football, man. It was just football as we know it. It's football as you see it today on without TV.
Right.
I mean, it was just the atmosphere was electric. It was just an honor, and it was just great to be on that stage and playing football. And part of my drive was to make sure that Greg's death wasn't in vain. I played for Greg. I played for my family. But I played for all the black people in the stand who were getting discriminated against. I played with a vengeance.
You felt that.
I felt that.
Okay.
And I played with the conviction that I'm dedicated to. I'm gonna make them. I'm gonna
make them feel you.
I'm gonna make them feel me.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I was on defense because I was a pretty good player, even though I couldn't play today. We talked about that
earlier. I mean,
I couldn't play with the linebackers.
I don't know if we couldn't play, but I know you might have be a different position. Because kids are so much bigger now. We talked about that. Yeah. Linebackers 6'4".
Exactly.
When I was at the University of Louisville, we had Otis Wilson, who was all pro, and Joe Jacoby was our defensive player. So we had some big guys. I remember some big guys. But when you're on the field, they don't look so big to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's different when you got, in the locker room and stuff.
Exactly.
But when you're on that field and you doing what you're doing, they doing what they doing, nobody feels bigger. Am I right or wrong?
You're correct. You can't see size. You don't see
You don't
size.
see size. You just know what your assignment
What
is.
your assignment is. I don't give a dag on how big you.
Yeah, I
the
gotta
bigger you
get
are, you gotta get hit.
Yeah.
Big. What is it? The
Bigger
the harder they fall.
Yeah.
So no size. I mean, so that's almost like saying I'm scared.
Yeah.
And you can't be scared.
Yeah.
You know, there's no place for.
Yeah, when I talked to you, I talked to my son, my cousin Sonny Collins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny had a great career up in UK.
I recruited him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Madisonville. And when Sonny was at Kentucky, there's nothing he couldn't do.
Exactly.
Am I right or wrong?
He was a king.
He was a king down there.
King Sonny Collins. Yes. He ruled the roost, dog. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I mean,
when he moved, Kentucky moved. That's how he was doing it right there, right?
Exactly. Sonny Collins was that guy.
But I remember when he went to pro level, things changed.
Well,
that life changed.
I mean, when you're in college in the SEC and being the premier running back that he was, the outstanding running back. I mean, these guys, Sonny Collins was, man, he was special.
Oh, he's a real deal.
Oh, he was a real deal. And they weren't used to athletes like that.
Yeah. Speed. That's when they doing the veer offense back then, right?
Yeah.
He was hitting that hole with that elite block.
Sonny Collins was one of the best running backs to put a football.
He was strong. He's just like Bo Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Not as big as Bo.
He was outstanding.
But outstanding.
Yeah, he was. I was a senior, or else I was a grad assistant, and we recruited him and had a big party for Sonny.
So when you were at Kentucky, you became part of the fabric of recruitment, all those things. They used you as the recruiter, that Kentucky's a good place to be.
Yeah, and to that point, after Greg passed, and my freshman year, and that was in 1967. If you look at the roster at the University of Kentucky, there were, in 1968, the roster for football players, for the football team had no African Americans. You know why?
No.
Because we told them not. We didn't want them because we were still dealing with Greg's death and we weren't trusting.
Oh, wow. So the players went to other black players being recruited and said, look, don't come.
It was just Houston and I.
You and wow.
We weren't
convinced
that it was the right place for other black athletes to come, because we were still reeling.
Right, you weren't gonna run from it. You're gonna finish it out.
We're gonna deal with it.
Yeah,
which is what Nate asked us to do when Nate left and went to Western Kentucky. Nate said, "Look, I gotta go," because I mean they took his meal ticket. He had
that was Nate Northern.
That was Nate Northern.
Was a heck of an athlete too. Whole family, brother Mike played at Purdue. Ken played at UK.
Best athletes on that team.
Yeah.
But he had no counseling. He was almost like they isolated Nate after Greg's death. He was just like on an alley, and we never saw him. Plus, Nate was so quiet.
Yeah, he's a quiet man.
He's a quiet man. That was his nature. He's an introvert, and so we we just didn't know. It was like we don't know that this is the right place for black athletes because we ourselves started to leave, Houston and I, and we was our parents. Both my parents said, no, you guys can't. And plus, Nate asked us, stick it out.
Wow.
When he left and went to Western, he said, I got to go. I can't stay. But I want you guys to finish this thing that Greg and I started.
Wow.
And that was part of I had my suitcase, I had my bags packed more than once, Lamont. But because he asked us, and because my parents, I said, Mama and Daddy, I called home and said, I'm coming home. And they said, son, no, I'll be up there. They might come the weekend, but no, just don't leave. So anyway, they, more than once, because it was tough. It was tough dealing with Greg's death. It was tough dealing with the racism that we had to deal with every day. And it was just tough surviving that environment every day.
Yeah. At the museum, we talk about surviving trauma just from the slave chains that I put on people. But you realize, as black people, we have gone through some things, and I would say it's not the weakness of slavery, it's the strength that brought us through.
Exactly.
And the strength of people like you that broke color barriers, even so you may not have been the first, you were in it, you were in the middle of it. What kind of strength, I mean, as a young man, all young men, like you said, going to the hood, and the hood kind of protected you and made you feel at home.
Right.
Did you ever look in the mirror and say, I got enough. I got to go. I got to roll out of here. How many days a week would you do that?
You talking about as far as leaving school?
Yeah, just saying, hey, man, I got to let this go.
You know, it happened probably more than I can even imagine or account for. But each time it was something that drew me back, and of course it was like, don't quit,
Right.
don't give up, don't be defeated, don't let them defeat you, don't let them run you, because I knew they didn't want me. You know, the whole Mississippi didn't want me to come and play. They didn't want me to come and play in Georgia. They didn't want me to come and play in that. They didn't want me in that stadium. They didn't want a black man playing on it. And I had teammates that didn't want a black man on the team because they never played.
So how'd y'all do the meal? Like, I know, you have meal team, meal ticket. You go.
Oh, we had our own. We had our own.
Cook.
Yeah. We had our own meal.
So they never had to isolate you guys on the road, where y'all ate separate than the team.
On the road.
On the road.
On the road. No, we ate with the team.
Okay.
Yeah, we ate with the team. Everything we did, even at UK, we had our own cafeteria. We had our own room.
Okay, good.
On cafeteria, we had a room in the cafeteria that we ate.
Okay, so you never isolated.
No.
But so how's it playing for a team? You know, one thing about football or any sport, when you don't have to like the guy, but you have to play with him and do the best with him.
Right.
So when you say, so you had teammates you just didn't like.
Exactly. Who just didn't like me.
Just didn't like you either.
Because I was black.
Right.
Yeah. So I had them, and I knew who they were, and because I was on defense, they were punished.
Right.
And I made it a fact. That's the way I did. That's the way I attacked it.
Yeah.
That's the way I dealt with it. I said, he ain't right, and every time he gets that, he puts his hand up, I'm gonna do something to him, and I did. And so that was
and they knew it.
And they knew it.
You have to say it.
And they knew that I knew that they were racist.
Right.
I mean, they wasn't. Yeah. And you go. And I'm not going, Lamont, I ain't bragging.
But you brought the pain.
But I brought the pain.
Okay.
And I never missed practice or a game in my 4 years because I was blessed. First of all, I probably should have said that first, by the grace of God, because he protected me and took care of me, because I did enough stupid stuff to be gone.
You keep saying that.
Yeah, but
a lot of young men do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So when you got the award, because I have you left the replica trophy that they gave the four of you, called the four of us. It was Northern,
Right.
Hodge, Page, and you, correct?
Not Hodge, Page, Hall.
Hogg, yeah,
Houston
Hogg.
Hogg, yeah.
And then, so I saw the replica trophy. Statue.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when you got to go back, all the drama, all the success along with the drama, and you were honored for being there? How did that make you feel?
You know, I was certainly taken aback by it. I mean, I was highly, very, very grateful that they thought enough, led by my teammate Paul Kerm, that he initiated the statue, the establishment of the statue, and took a lot of work, a lot of convincing, but I was truly honored, and certainly grateful for them recognizing us. But just like I told anybody, for 50 years that statue wasn't there. And if they didn't erect the statue, if they didn't in our honor, I'd have been fine.
Okay.
But I'm thankful that they thought enough of us, and I'm thankful for the initial movement by Paul Kerner and some of our other and Paul Wagner and guys like P.G. Peoples, who's the president of the Urban League, Jim Host, who got behind this and made it.
It's Host Communication.
Host Communication, yeah. So a lot of good people got behind this thing to make it happen.
I mean, I could talk to you forever because you are history and legacies matter.
I appreciate it.
This is deeply rooted, but I have to ask this question. I got to ask this question. Historical black colleges, I know when I was coming out, they were trying to tell us don't go to historical black colleges, right? But when you were coming out, black athletes were playing in the NFL. Majority of them coming out of the HBCUs, right?
Right.
Did you have any allegiance to feeling that you needed to go to a black college, or just because your parents all talked UK, you never even thought about that experience?
Well, you know, I never even thought about I mean, I thought about U of L for about a second.
Okay.
But I went to Manual High School, and I used to look across the street at U of L every day. So I wasn't going to U of L. Plus, when I played on Thanksgiving, at Fairgrounds before they got Cardinal Stadium.
Right.
We had it was like playing, on a pig pen, and we had to come through the lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, and plus I wanted to get away from home.
Okay.
I thought about going to U of L, but just for it was a very short thought. So UK. It was
The Black College.
the UK was first on my list, and historical Black colleges. Just I don't think I ever really got approached.
As strong as your Black family was.
I never thought about, because I never got approached, and I now enjoyed going to Kentucky State and Tennessee State, but no, I never thought about going because I had other offers that were as far as I'm concerned, they were offers for a better opportunity.
Right,
than
I get it.
But again, the best athletes, the best Black athletes, they were some of the best football back in the '60s and the '70s.
Yeah.
I would every time if I was off, I would go to Kentucky, especially when Kentucky State was playing Tennessee State. That was I had to go to that game if I was off. So anyway, yeah, I love watching. And historically, Black college football was very strong. But again, I had opportunities to go to the other Power 5 schools, and I didn't.
Well, I think it's guys like you that broke that barrier, opened that door for guys like me to have decisions, go to whatever school we want to. And without guys like you, we would never have the opportunity that we had today. So I commend you. I call you a legacy. That's why I'm so glad to have your story here at the museum. And I call this Deeply Rooted because it's deeply rooted into who we are as Black people and how we have to come together and work together through all obstacles. And you're a legacy to that. So in closing, this is Lamont Collins, Deeply Rooted, with Brother Hackett. He is a legend. And anything you want to say before you leave?
Well, I just thank you so much for this opportunity, and I would like to say to all anyone listening, and especially these young Black men and women today, let's come together. Let's try to stop this violence. Let's stop doing evil and wrong to one another. Let's come together and support one another so we can have a better quality of life. And that's what I would like to leave you with.
Well, thank you, bro.
Thank
You're
you.
a legacy. Thank you for having me. Cool. Lamont Collins, Legacy Matter, and so do you. Be blessed.